Just a few more months. All right, Dr. Shiva, so now let's get into it. What are some things that we should avoid while pregnant?
There's a long list, but the truth is, I tell patients frequently, you're not sick, you're only pregnant. So you want to use your sense. In general, if you do something once, the likelihood is it's not going to cause harm. So the bottom line is don't freak out too much. But there's the obvious things, right? We shouldn't be smoking, ideally. We shouldn't be doing drugs, ideally. We shouldn't be drinking during pregnancy. Food tends to be one that freaks people out a lot, and I'm glad in a way because I can give people very concrete lists of things that they need to modify. So American College of OBGYN, which is our governing body, has a great do's and don'ts list. So if people haven't looked at that, I actually encourage them to look at it because it really goes through the data and what has been proven and not. So the food things that I like to remind patients to kind of either avoid or just modulate is the things that can cause listeria that nobody wants to get exposed to. But when pregnant women get exposed to it, it can lead to more harm than if unpregnant women get exposed to it. So the places where listeria could be found would be unpasteurized things. So often people hear about unpasteurized cheese, but usually you're going to the regular restaurant, the regular grocery store, right?
Yeah.
Those places are typically going to sell you cheese that is pasteurized because unpasteurized cheeses tend to be far more expensive. So if you're in a fancy restaurant and they have a cheese board from a local farm, you might need to ask them if it's pasteurized or not. But you should make sure it's pasteurized, if it's cheeses, pasteurized with things like apple cider, which people forget about. So if you go to a local farm for a harvest fair, also from cold cuts. So if you go buy a deli sandwich, you need to worry a little bit that even though there's a lot of preservatives in that deli meat, bacteria like listeria can grow. You're supposed to heat it up to steaming, which sounds terrible to patients. So I usually say make it a panini, microwave it maybe for 30 seconds. The other two big ones are caffeine. So caffeine is okay. Patients call me freaked out, I have to give up my caffeine, now I have a headache. You can safely have caffeine, and they've actually measured that you should have no more than 300 milligrams a day, which is like, I won't say which store, but a grande from one of those good stores. And then the fourth one is fish. So fish is also very confusing, but fish has mercury in it. Mercury, for my brain, is not great if I have too much of it, but in your case, you have two brains that you're worried about. But they've defined the level. A more common fish you can have 2 or 3 times a week. If it's a higher mercury fish that is not completely off the list, for example, tuna, you can have it once a week and that's fine.
Oh, you can have tuna.
You can. Once a week, we say. I joke, when you eat sushi, I think people tend to look at you like you're smoking a cigarette in pregnancy, but they're wrong. As long as you're having sushi-grade fish, not raw fish that was meant to be cooked, but sushi-grade fish, which most restaurants would be serving if they're serving sushi, you are fine because those are very unlikely to have parasites or bacteria that are dangerous for the pregnancy.
Talk to me about cats.
So toxoplasmosis, again, incites a ridiculous amount of anxiety. Patients will call freaking out, I have a cat and I changed my kitty litter. And I will joke, did you then lick your hands without washing them? So indoor cats who have not been outside are not going to get exposed to it. But what if I have a cat who goes outside and then runs inside and then poops in my kitty litter? The answer is great. Change the kitty litter, wash your hands before you then make a salad with your bare hands. So you see how, once again, most of these things have a little bit of a basis in truth, but have been overblown to the point of anxieties, where women really feel like every single thing I'm doing might impact this, tiny little infant. And the truth is that the pregnancy is a lot smarter than we think it is. So I think while we have to be smart about the choices we pick, we also have to remind ourselves that this little infant inside is going to be pretty well protected, and it's not going to necessarily want to stop itself from growing too easily.
I'm really happy that I had the chance to talk to Dr. Shiva because she's so smart and so knowledgeable. But I know that there's more to pregnancy than just giving up turkey sandwiches.
One of the biggest things that was hard for me to give up was deli turkey, which sounds really silly. I know, it sounds so silly. And it just ended up being such a huge problem for me that I couldn't eat. It was. And as soon as I had the baby, I was like, I want a turkey sandwich. I had 2 turkey sandwiches in the one day, right?
Yeah, in the hospital.
In the hospital, that's what I had. I had 2 turkey sandwiches.
If I can add something to your list that I think was challenging for you, was your clothes fitting. And I think that deli turkey was a big deal. But like being a masculine of center presenting woman, especially in a professional environment, and pregnancy clothing, there's a lot of ruching in weird places.
There's a lot of wrap dresses. I usually wear like pressed pants and a button down that I tuck in. well, not tucking in anything. Like, that was
Yeah.
impossible. So I had to really come to terms with what my presentation was, particularly at work, and how people would react to that. So kind of giving up what I had maintained as kind of my uniform as part of my identity was really, really, really difficult. Suddenly you're making choices that are not just for you. But they can be such an inconvenience, and it really can be a constant reminder that you are never going to be alone ever again.